that tomorrow the Northern Lights will likely be visible from your location.
So I have talked a lot about ham radio and a little bit about HF and things like that. First of all, go watch that video. Um, First time I found this guy, but all those guys. There's literally a science called space weather, and the variations of that, and this guy is probably one of them. Um, or that he at least talked like he did that. But anyway, so the Muggles, as I call them, the non-ham radio operators, they want to know: can I see the aura? Can I see the aura? Can I see the aura? So I mentioned in a previous video, and I'll mention that again here. Some ham radio operators look for those auras, and they're bouncing signals off of that aura to unknown areas, and they get a little bit of warble, wobble, whatever. Warble, I think they call it. And I'm not sure how far you can reach or anything like that, but I know that is a thing. One other thing happens, and this is something that ham radar operators who, especially playing the HF arena, may pay attention to. Some may not, but those who care or those who are really interested are paying attention to the all these solar flares, and then there is a solar index. What is that? Well, to start with, let's talk about how HF works. And sorry, I don't have pretty graphs or anything like that, but imagine. So people know that there's different layers of the atmosphere, right? And one of them that we were to learn about is the ionosphere. So that is one of those things that go here. I'll use my head as a globe. That just kind of sits. It's all around the globe. And what happens is all these solar flares, all these events, charges up the ions that are in that atmosphere, and causes causes radio waves to bounce off of them, to reflect. Normally, if the ionosphere wasn't charged, it may absorb it, it may go through, more likely absorb it. And so all these longer radio waves, the 10 meter, 20 meter, so on long radio waves, they all bounce. And so depending upon how charged they are, depends upon which ones bounce. So here's why this is important. When at low solar cycle, because there's a solar cycle associated with this. So the sun kind of chills out for a couple years, like farts once in a while. That's what some of us call it. And then all of a sudden it starts to pick up, and now we're kind of I don't know, halfway up the peak. Maybe this guy can correct me on that. But we're starting to go up higher and higher in the solar cycle towards more and more activity. That's where you get more and more auras. This is I believe it's an 11-year cycle about. So every 11 years you have this high and a low. So we're kind of going up. We just had solar minimum here 2 years ago, I think. So just kind of give you a projection. So us ham radio operators, the more charged that ionosphere is, the more likely we can bounce signals off. So that means that your upper bands, 10 meter, 12 meter, 15 meter especially, they bounce out farther. So remember, this ionosphere is floating above the Earth. So I'm shooting a signal up. Gotta use your head, right? I'm shooting a signal up, and it bounces down. Well, imagine, because your signal is kind of radiating out in different patterns, but ultimately out. You hit that long enough, you're shooting way down on potentially the other side of the Earth. It has not been unheard of, and this is weird, and I really want to experience this, but people have started talking on the radio, and they hear themselves because their signal has literally bounced around the entirety of the earth, and they're hearing themselves in their own radio. It has happened before. Maybe we could have it happen again. That'd be really cool to hear, for someone on TikTok here to share that. I'm not enough on those upper bands to try it maybe, but yeah, that allows you to literally talk to people all around the world by voice, which is, from what I understand, you in some cases you pick a spot on the band and boom, you're talking to someone, from another country very easily. Is what the heyday of amateur radio, so to speak, in what 60s or something like that. So that is why us amateur radio operators really care about all the solar storms and solar flares and everything else, because it charges the ionosphere, improves our signals, improves our distance, and so on. But there's also a downside. And I'm assuming, like I said, I haven't followed this guy very long, that he probably talks about the downside too. Because the sun screams, and it screams at I shouldn't say every single frequency, at a lot of different frequencies. So if it screams loud enough, you're not hearing nothing. You're not working people. It's just droning out anything and everything in the ham bands. Actually, all bands. So now you're not hearing anything, and that can be a bad thing. Imagine military who relies on HF communications to coordinate their stuff. Now they can't talk to each other. So there's been a lot of research associated with that. I don't know specifics on that. But also can affect things like satellites, because in GPS, because it's drowning out the signal that's coming from space. Effectively, my brain is not functioning but it's effectively blocking the signal. So that can cause GPS problems on Earth. Maybe you're shifting it off on where your location is, or whatever, and that is sometimes a concern. The other thing that can think about is if you fly regularly, you can get some solar radiation effects and things like that. Space Weather Woman on Facebook. I don't know if she's on TikTok, but Space Weather Woman. Google her on YouTube. Google her, yeah, you know what I mean. And look her up. She talks about all this stuff, and she does a regular weekly show. With updates of kind of like your meteorologist on TV, kind of covering all these different topics. So if you're fascinated about this, hey, go dive in more. If you're a amateur operator, at least understand enough to know what to look for. Like I said, I don't do much on operations during the day, which is really where that comes in. But it does not help 60 meter propagation either, which is our 80 meter. I don't know what I said. It does not help 80 meter propagation either, which is primarily where I'm on most nights. So I hope that helps. Just another explanation of why amateur radio operators follow and track this stuff the best we can, because it affects us. And thankfully it does not normally affect VHF UHF communications, because you're kind of protected by the atmosphere, things like that. But potentially, if something's strong enough, maybe it could affect somewhat. So just things to pay attention to as you navigate your world. But otherwise, enjoy the beauty of the Northern Lights, because you don't see them very often on normal times. So, and if you're in northern Minnesota, it is amazing. I have seen it several times up in Canada and up in northern Minnesota. It is quite the sight to see. In fact, one time, quick story, my uncles and dad said it was so bright outside from the northern lights that it was like daylight. So, enjoy your night. Stay safe, WX0, okay?